So what we're going to do today is we're going to launch a program called Visual Basic. I type in the run in Visual Basic and Visual Basic 2010 comes up. And the IDE pops up here of Visual Basic 2010. I'm going to start a new project and a new Windows application. The lovely thing about Visual Basic is it allows us to write programs that run in Windows. So you can give those programs to your friends that are running Windows. So at the top here, I'd like to just show you the different parts of Visual Basic. So one of the first parts here is the form. This is the form right here, this box. And that is like the piece of paper where your application runs on. So we're going to put different objects in there. Over to the right here is the Solution Explorer. And in the Solution Explorer, you'll see the different forms. In the beginning, we'll probably just have one form, but you might eventually have multiple forms. And you might even see some of the resources that you have here. In the bottom right corner is the Properties window that tells me the properties of the various objects that I'm working with. And to the left here, which I don't have right now, it's not visible, so I'm going to get it by going under the View menu and saying Toolbars and Other Windows and Toolbox. And I'll put the Toolbox up here, and I'll make the Toolbox a little bit smaller. And I can redock it in all sorts of different ways so it fits here. Okay, so here's my Windows form, and I will put my tools up by clicking on Toolbox. And you have to get used to it. It takes a little bit to get used to the docking windows, which can be a challenge. Okay, so to create my first program, what I would do is I would take a tool like the label and I would drag it on a form. And when I do that, it now has that tool. In this case, the label control is on here, and the label control is used to display text. Let me press run and play the program I just made, even though I haven't really done anything. And I hit play, and if I minimize Visual Basic, you'll see the program running. It's got the form, it's got the minimize, maximize, and close. And it also displays the label. If I hit close, the program will stop, and I'm back to the editor here. Okay, to change the properties of the label, what I do is I click on the label, and remember how I said in the bottom right-hand corner is the Properties window. And in the Properties window, I can modify a property. In this case, the property I want to modify is the text that's displayed. And I'm going to type Hello World. Hello World will be displayed. And when I press Enter, notice the form now says Hello World. And if I press play, it'll run the program and Hello World is displayed. Now, if I want to change other properties, for example, I can select the label and I can change the font. So if I click here where it says font, right now it says Microsoft Sans Serif 8.25. I click on it and I can make it bold and size 16 and press OK. And now it says Hello World as a bold and size 16. Great. So that's how we make our first program, the Hello World program. The trickiest part with Visual Basic, and this is something I really want to stress, is how to save the project. So often students will do hours of work save it, and unfortunately all is lost and they lost everything. So this next step is the most important and one of the trickiest things to getting started with using VisualBasic. We don't just save the form. There's a whole slew of files and folders that get created here. In fact, I think they make it pretty bloated in the beginning. It's a little frustrating, but you'll have to see what it does. What we do is we select File, and we don't just save, we have to select Save All. If you select Save, you may be in trouble, and you might lose everything. So you have to select Save All the very first time. So we select Save All, which has the icon of the multi-discs, and I need to navigate to where I would like to save this. So I'm going to click Browse, and I'm going to go to Drive My Documents, and then I'm going to go to a folder called VisualBasic 2010, which is in my documents, and then you're going to see another folder called Projects, and that's where I'm going to save my projects. So I'm going to say select that folder. So it's going to save in my documents VisualBasic 2010 Projects. I next need to give it a name. This will be Hello World. That's why I'm going to call this project. I'm going to press Save, and everything is saved. So I can close this off, and the next day I can open that project because I saved it properly. Those students that don't save it properly will have to do all their work again. So just a little caution there. So let's go to VisualBasic 2010 and Projects, and you'll see there's a folder called Hello World. Not only did it make a folder called Hello World, inside that folder is another folder called Hello World. The solution file, the VisualBasic file we want, is called the .sln. And in the settings, hopefully you'll see the extension, but I know the administrators have turned off viewing extensions, so it might just say Hello World but have the VB10 icon, and you'll know that's the Solution Explorer. Anyhow, to get the Hello World SLN, that's an important one because when I double click on it, it will launch VisualBasic. Yes, I trust that this is not a security risk, and it will load the solution file, which will include the form with the objects and tools and all the other sub-files that may go on with that. Let's look at some of the other files that it made when I press Save All. If I open the Hello World, you'll see there's a VB file called Form 1 Designer, a ResX file, a VB project file, and a Hello World VB project.user file. There's also a folder called OBJ, My Project and Bin, and inside the Bin project, there's debug and release versions, and in the debug one, you'll see there's a file called helloworld.vshost.exe, and that is the program that you could give to someone right away, and they could run your program even without VisualBasic. So this is where the Windows application is located. If you double click on it, voila, what you see is Hello World runs.